Let us try and familiarize ourselves with each of these different padarthas, beginning with Dravya. Dravya or substance constitutes the basic building block of the reality. And why I say that it constitutes the basic building block is because it forms the substratum for all the other padarthas. So, the gunas inhere in the Dravya. Without the Dravya or the substratum, you cannot have properties or attributes just floating around here. So, for example, you cannot have green just floating around here and there. It has to be in some Dravya. Similarly, you cannot have action walking, go just or running just floating around over here. It has to be the running or walking of some entity, of some substance or substratum. So, that substratum of all of these things is Dravya. So, that is why it forms the basic building block. The notion of this substance, though for lack of a better term we are using the word substance, but Dravya is much more broader than what we understand as substance, because they include both physical as well as non-physical thing, as we will see in some time. Things like Atma, soul, time, etc. are also considered as substance, whereas in modern understanding you would generally, when you say something is a substance, you generally think of something tangible, something physical, like that we think. But in this case, even what we consider abstract like time, space, etc. are also considered substances. So, the Vaisheshika gave a list of 9 types of substances. Once again I stress 9 types of, these are types of substances, not individual tokens of substances. So, these were Prithvi, which is earth, Apa, which is water, Tejas, fire, Vayu, air, Akasha, we have translated it as ether for because we don't have, I don't know of any better term, but Akasha, that is another of the substance. Dik, which is space, as I told you, it is non-physical things are also considered under the category of Dravya. So, here is one such non-physical thing, space. Kala, because they consider that everything that happens, all the events that happen in time. So, time acts as a substratum for all the events. So, it should also be considered as a Dravya. And the last two are Manas, which is the translated as mind, and the Atma or the soul or self. So, these are the different 9 types of substances according to the Vaisheshika, and they try to give some more features of each of these substances. So, some of the substances are finite in the sense that they are, you can consider them as atomic or corporeal, you can consider them in that sense, atomic to be more accurate. So, for example, Prithvi, Apa, Tejas, Vayu and mind are atomic, they are finite, whereas Akasha, Dik and Kala, these are infinite or all pervading, Vibhu they say, these are all pervading. Substances like earth, water, fire, etc., they are made up of Paramanu or atoms, therefore, and these atoms are innumerable. So, that is another thing, another feature of these finite entities, that they are innumerable, which they also share with another infinite or all pervading entity called soul. The soul is all pervading and infinite, but there are innumerable souls. So, the soul which is there currently in me is different from the soul that is there in you. So, these are, whereas the space that is there here in the place where I am recording is the same space that is there wherever it is that you are watching. So, space is all pervasive. Similarly, Akasha, which is not to be confused with sky or space, whatever Akasha is there over here is the same Akasha which is present wherever it is that you are watching. Similarly, with time, for the sake of convenience we talk about today, tomorrow, here, there, etc., these kinds of things, but metaphysically speaking, the same space that is there here is there also. So, these things are singular, they are not innumerable. So, these are some of the more finer details about the different substances. Coming to a few more details about these finite substances like earth, water, etc. Each of these things has a property which distinguishes it from the other property. So, the property that distinguishes Akasha from all the other padarthas or all the other finite substances, let us say, is sound. So, only Akasha can have sound. So, sound or Shabda inheres only in Akasha, it is not present in any of the other 4 Dravyas, it is not present. Similarly, the sense of touch is there only in Vayu, it is not there anywhere else. Likewise, color is present only in fire. So this you must understand by now when I am saying like this, that what we are calling tejas or vayu is not what today science calls air or fire, etc. So some of you may think that, array, what is this? How can fire have fire be the carrier of the property called color? Color can be there in water also, like that you may think. But the distinguishing, but here what the Vaisheshika are talking about when they say tejas is different from what we call today fire. Likewise, the distinguishing feature or attribute of water is that it has taste, or taste inheres in water. And finally, what distinguishes earth from the other dravyas is that it is the possessor of smell. So as you can see, earth possesses all the other traits also, like taste, color, touch, but it is the unique thing that it has that other dravyas don't have is smell or gandha. So the definition of earth itself, if you take a classical Indian text like Tarka Sangraha, you will find that Gandhavati Prithvi, or Prithvi is that which has smell. That is that kind of a definition you will find. So what they are talking about may not be exactly what today physics talks about, smell, taste, etc. It need not be the case. Now you notice here that the four earth, water, fire and air are somewhat distinct from ether. Why? Because they are atomic in nature, that is the composite, they are made up of atoms which combine together to give the various composite entities that we see around us. Whereas Akasha is one, as I had just mentioned, it is not separate here and there, etc. It is one and it is Ekam and Vibhu, it is all pervading. Now these atoms of earth, water, fire and air, they combine in a particular way in order to form all the composite entities that we see around us. So the smallest particle of these four dravyas is called a paramanu, or just anu it is called, and it is indivisible. You can't go below an anu. So it is the logical end point, or even the metaphysical end point of breaking down a composite entity down to its parts. Now this anu, so two anus combine to form a dyad or a dvyanuka. So this is formed, and three such dvyanukas combine to form a triad or a trianuka. Now this trianuka is the least smallest perceivable entity according to the Vaisheshika, is this trianuka or the triad. So just to repeat, two anus or two paramanus combine to form a dyad or a dvyanuka, and three such dvyanukas combine to form a trianuka or a triad. And then this goes on, and all the composite entities that we see around us, this remote, this watch, this dress, etc., all of these things are formed by a further combination of all of these things. What about the other substances or other dravyas like dik, kala, manas, etc.? Let us see a few more details about them. Space, which is called dik, is eternal and all pervading. As I said, it is not atomic like the other four dravyas. Whatever space is here is the same space which is there, but it is experienced as diverse because of different effects that it has. So if I am doing something over here, the effect of that is not felt somewhere else. So we think that the space here is different from the space over there, but metaphysically it is one and all pervading. Likewise, kala also is eternal and all pervading. It is not made of parts, but out of convention, out the way, the weird nature of our language, we speak of words like now, then, yesterday, young, old, etc. These kinds of conventionally we make distinctions in time. So as they say, clocks don't measure time, they measure themselves, like that they say. So it is not a making distinctions between morning and evening, etc. These are the things that we have as a convention made, but time itself is partless, it cannot have divisions in it. The last two dravyas are manas and atman. What we call manas in Sanskrit and in the Vaisheshika framework is different from what psychology may understand as mind today. For the Vaisheshika, manas is an internal sense organ. So just like the eye is there and it has the sense of sight, with that I can see entities like this curtain and this table, etc. Or with the sense of my smell, I can smell let us say some bread or some rice or chapati, whatever it is there, omelette or whatever it is there, I can do that. In the same way, using the sense organ called manas, I can perceive my internal phenomena like happiness, sadness, emotion, whatever it is that I am feeling, or even knowledge. How do I know that I know? For example, I know I know this curtain because I'm perceiving it. But how do I know that I know? It is because manas is able to turn back on itself and see that yes, I know that I know. So manas is an internal organ which perceives the internal phenomena. So that is why it is a sense organ as differently understood in the Vaisheshika terminology. The last, of course, is Atman. It is a substratum of consciousness. The unique thing over here is that in some traditions, consciousness is an inherent or a natural feature of Atman, whereas in some other traditions, consciousness is not an innate property or attribute of the self. Only when the self gets embodied or it occupies some physical body, it gets consciousness. The Nyaya is one such tradition which believes that the Atman is conscious only when it is embodied, and this self is the observer of the universe. So it is the one, all cognition inheres in this thing called Atman. So everything that we call as knowledge, which is one kind of cognition, is a property of this Atman. So these are some of the details about the 9 types of Dravyas. So I repeat again, these are not the individual substances, but different types of substances. So self is a type. So the self in me is different from the self in you, but by giving an account of the category called self, they have been able to give the nature of all the infinite selves that are there in this world. So this is a little detail about the Dravyas. So we will see a few more details about the other categories like guna, karma, etc.